This is Rob Tebbutt for Boxing Social in association with Betfred. Delighted, as always, to be joined by Eddie Hearn of Matchroom Boxing. How are you, Eddie? Nice to see you.
I'm good, mate. It's a shame that your number one couldn't interview me today, but I think it's great that me and you get to be reacquainted, Rob. You know, it's been a while, ever since sort of Andy took over that number one spot. But I know where it all started, so that's why when you asked me for an interview, I jump on.
Thanks very much, Eddie. You're a real one. Andy, unfortunately, is getting his hair done. He's going for a nice little shot.
Probably with his tailor right now, or his stylist. You know, looking at for his next transatlantic trip, probably. You know.
Yeah, he is.
He's banned from going. What's the crack with you going to America? Are you banned from the country, or
no?
Missus don't let you go, or what?
So unfortunately, during the pandemic, Andy got his visa waiver. So on top of his for Canelo versus Callum Smith, I unfortunately did not get one under the Trump administration. So since Mr. Biden has come in, he's decided to tell reprobates like myself to stay away from the great country of America. So I'm waiting, mate. I'm waiting until it opens up a little bit more. I tried to get out for several shows this year, but unfortunately wasn't granted permission. So you've had to deal with Mr. Purawal, who's been doing very well.
He's done well. What a life you've given him.
I've unfortunately relegated myself to his PA a little bit in the last 6 months.
It's interesting in America, like, I know obviously we'll get on to boxing in a minute, but how the world is opening up. But actually Biden seems to be just saying, no, we're fine, thanks. You ain't coming in. And even now, I have a visa for America, but I still have to have the exemption, which actually has to be reapplied for now. So all of these fights that are upcoming, you know, Dillon Whyte is a good example of someone that probably will be fighting in America next. It's an ongoing process, and we expected it to be opened up as the country opened up, which it has, but still they haven't opened up the borders. So we have to see what happens.
Yeah, it's not ideal, but you know, we have to kind of get on with it when life hands you lemons and all of that. While we're kind of hovering around that subject, Eddie, what's going on with your American show that's slated for August? We were going to come on to talk about that in a little while. Obviously, Lawrence Okolie was one of the names that was rumored to be on that LA show, I believe, on August the 21st. Is that still going ahead, or are you moving that date?
Yeah, no, we will be going ahead that weekend. We're just deciding, obviously, it's a busy weekend, and you got the famous Jake Paul fighting Tyrone Woodley on the 28th. We may go on the Friday, we may go on the Sunday, we may still go on the Saturday, but that will be our next US show. And there'll also be a Mexico show probably the week before. So we're just finalising all that at the moment. You know, I've made it very clear now with the global platform of DAZN, we need to make sure that those US shows, of course, while driving numbers in the US, will also have a UK relevance. Dillon Whyte is slated to fight on that card on August the 28th. Lawrence Okolie is another one who could be on that card. Joe Caldina, Dalton Smith. So looking to have around 4 Brits on that card in August, and we'll finalise all that this week. I think really, you know, obviously fight camp is done bar a few 8-round opponents, and then moving into the end of August, and then of course Josh Warrington, which will be announced probably this week as well, and already moving into the October schedule with a big show in Liverpool, and also hopefully Rungvisai against Estrada 3.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Sorry, Estrada against Chocolatito 3 even, and Rungvisai Quadra as a double header.
Before we kind of move on, Eddie, you mentioned a Mexico show. Then, of course, you had recently a Mexico show headlined by Julio Cesar Martinez. Finally, good to get him back in the ring after a little bit of a stop-start, 6 to 12 months or so for him. What was that like for you out there? What was the experience like of promoting in Mexico?
It was wild, really, because it's a very different way of operating there. So, like, the standard reply to any operational or logistical question is, it's fine, don't worry. And on the night, we did have an issue with the lighting and the power supply. So, like, an hour before we were due to go on air, basically, it stopped working. And I went over to talk to the lighting company and AV company, and all I could just see was people plugging in things all in this supply, and it's operationally really difficult because, like, we are now involved at a very high level of shows in the UK and US, and there's a lot on the line every time you go on air, and we got away with it. We didn't just get away with it operationally, but from a show perspective, I thought it was absolutely fantastic. I mean, some of the stuff you didn't see, and we'll work on this moving forward, is even like at 4 o'clock, you know, guys who Eddie Reynoso is telling me, like, this guy could be the next Canelo. The 17-year-old kid, he's 2-0, goes in and fights a guy that I probably wouldn't put a 15-0 kid in with, you know, and gets a draw. And like, it's just from start to finish, it was just war after war after war. And one of the most pleasing things was the response of people. And it was a tough weekend. You know, we were up against Lomachenko and we were up against Tank. You know, and although our show wasn't focused on the US, it still did good numbers on the US. But obviously, worldwide, the response was really good, which was, I loved that show. And it's not difficult to do a good show in Mexico, because boxing has become so, you know, and we're probably to blame for this as well, because of the growth we've given it and the money that is involved in that level now. People are so risk aversive now, and it's quite refreshing to go somewhere where people just want the opportunity. Like, win, lose or draw, of course they want to win, but they're just willing to fight anybody. And what you're going to get is just great fight after great fight after great fight. And as a promoter, it's refreshing to go into a show where you have that confidence. You can just sit there and go, I know this is going to be a great show. Like, subject to the lights not working, I know that this is going to be a great show. And like I said, the feedback from Mexico was great. Eddie Reynoso and Canelo obviously bring that great bit of profile to what we're doing over there. And the next show will be August the 20th, it looks like, which will be a Friday night, perhaps in Puerto Vallarta. And we're just getting that card ready now. Could be Kayaguchi defending against his mandatory. Could be Soto, our other world champion from Mexico. We're signing a few Mexican fighters as well, which will be announced this week. So looking forward to number 2.
Before we move on, Eddie, let's just touch upon Julio Cesar Martinez. He's always in entertaining fights. It was no difference against Joel Cordova. Got the stoppage in the end, but was made to work for it. What's the plans for him moving forward?
I think it's only a matter of time till he moves up to super flyweight. But I want him to have done something of note at flyweight before he does. And of course, that is to unify. You've got some great champions, Sonny Edwards, Callum, and Nakatani. And I think really his next fight has to be one of those guys, because he wants Estrada and he wants Rungvisai and he wants Chocolatito. And they're super fights. I really feel that Julio Cesar Martinez has the potential to be a huge star in Mexico. Like, he's got an amazing backstory. He's funny. He's ferocious. He's non-stop. He's always entertaining. I think those fights against Estrada and Chocolatito and Quadras and Rungvisai are just unbelievable fights. But I still feel that he's got a lot of unfinished business at flyweight. And next fight for him will probably be on the Canelo Alvarez card in September. And hopefully it will be a unification fight.
You mentioned the unification fights there with Artem Dalakain, Junto Nakatani, Sonny Edwards. He's been very vocal about that. Sonny Edwards, of course, holds the IBF. There's the built-in backstory where, I mean, Martinez, it was a ruled a no contest, but we all saw what happened in the fight against Charlie Edwards. Is that the most likely one? Do you think that there's a potential for Sonny Edwards versus Martinez?
I don't know. I mean, obviously different camps, you know, Frank and I think Sonny would take the fight. Would they come and do it on the Canelo Alvarez undercard? Perhaps that's someone we make an offer for. To be honest with you, I haven't had open discussions with any of the champions yet. That's something to be done this week, and when we've got the date in place. But you know, it's 10 weeks to go till September the 18th. So you know, we need to make that fight. I think Edwards against Martinez is a great fight. I think Sonny Edwards is a very tricky customer, very difficult to beat. The Callum fight is an absolute war because he likes to come forward, and Nakatani is a great fight. I'll take any of those guys now. So basically, the easiest one to make is the one that we will make next. And if that's Sonny Edwards, more than happy to do it.
Before we move off that card, there was another win for one of your other prospects who I'm a big fan of watching. Diego Pacheco always brings action, always very entertaining. What next for him?
Well, he's still a baby, really. You know, he goes to 12-0 and still just turned 20. Just needs to believe in himself a little bit more. Like, when he puts his shots together, he takes people out really convincingly, but still just at times, you know, learning a little bit about fighting on the inside, you know, having that confidence to believe in his power. He fought a game kid. I think he was 7-0 or something like that. Just the plan is really, I would like to get him on that August 28th card. He's got a great following in Los Angeles as well. So that'll be next for him. And then by the end of the year, looking to step him up into 10-round championship fights. I think because he's so young, he's probably going to get to 18, 19, 20-0 without too many tough nights. But, once I still think he has a little bit of growing to do. I say that he's 6'5". But I think his man strength is still developing a little bit. But everybody that he goes into camp with, I was sat next to Eddie Hearn during the fight, and he said, this kid can really fight. They had him in the camp with Canelo for the Callum Smith fight. Everybody speaks so highly of him. Benavidez spars him a lot. So he's a massive star for the future, and he's progressing nicely.
I've mentioned Canelo Alvarez a couple of times here. Obviously, we're still waiting to see what goes on with him with regards to his next move, the Caleb Plant fight. I saw you in the week discussing a potential bout with Artur Beterbiev as well. What's the latest for Canelo Alvarez?
We've put an offer into Caleb Plant's team. We're discussing that. I think it's no secret that I guess, PBC would rather do that fight on Fox. If they would, we don't have a problem to look at offers for that fight as well. We've had an offer to do that fight on DAZN, of which we've made an offer to Plant's team. Hopefully we'll have conversations today regarding that. And like I said, just gearing up. I think in this situation, what I said to Sal and Eddie was, you are obviously the star and the A side in this fight. You have to take control of the situation, and we just have to make sure that we fight in September, because he's been on a tremendous run. For a pound-for-pound number one during a pandemic, to have already boxed 3 times in 6 months. If he fights in September, that would be 4 fights in 10 months or 9 months. It's an incredible run, and he's ready to go. So if the Plant fight isn't possible on September the 11th or the 18th, we must fight. And when you look at those, he wants to fight the champions. I talked to him about a voluntary defense, and it doesn't really get him going. He likes to do something that people maybe think he shouldn't, or that surprises people, and another step up to light heavyweight. And obviously the 2 names, although you have Joe Smith as well, the 2 names that stand out are Beterbiev and Bivol. 2 tremendous fights. And, we've been speaking, obviously we have a close relationship with Bivol, and Beterbiev is top rank. I believe he was planning to fight Joe Smith, but we'll have to see what happens there. But I do believe that if he goes up, if the Plant fight doesn't materialise, you probably will see him move up and fight one of those champions, because that's what he wants to do, and he wants to continue to face champions. And if you look at his resume, going back, he boxed Danny Jacobs, who was the IBF world middleweight champion at the time. Then he boxed Sergey Kovalev, who was the WBO light heavyweight champion. Then he boxed Callum Smith, who was the WBA and Ring magazine champion. Then he had the mandatory in between. Then he boxed Billy Joe Saunders, who was the WBO world champion. It's an incredible run. And he wants to continue that. I think he's enjoying getting the props that he should be getting as well. And I do expect him to face another champion at 175 if the Plant fight can't be made.
That's him kind of moving up. I've also seen some quotes attributed to him whereby he would be open to potentially facing Jermall Charlo if he was to move up. Would you kind of encounter similar issues there with regards to making a cross-promotional fight as you are with Caleb Plant for Jermall Charlo?
Yeah, Rob, don't forget that, my relationship with Canelo has nothing to do with DAZN, of course, but, that's my network. And we'd like to stage those Canelo Alvarez fights on there. But, in our meetings with Canelo, he made it very clear to me in Guadalajara that you're my guy, you're my promoter. And, and I've made it clear to him, if an opportunity arises to fight on another platform that benefits your career, we can do that, no problem. I'm not out there saying, you must fight on DAZN. The offers are fantastic from DAZN, and, the numbers are obviously guaranteed. And you live in a world now where I feel that pay-per-view in America, you're on a knife edge every time you fight, because it's so saturated. And it's not saturated at £19.99. It's saturated at $80 a pop. So obviously you've just had Gervonta Davis. We await, obviously everyone says it did this. I guess we'll never know. That was a tremendous fight, and Gervonta Davis is a star. Now you go into Wilder against Fury, again, another pay-per-view. Then you go into Pacquiao against Spence, great fight, but another pay-per-view. Then you go into, or before that, Tyrone Woodley against Jake Paul. These are $80 at a time. And I feel that right now, if I'm a fighter, I don't want to be gambling on my pay-per-view numbers. There's no bigger star in America than Canelo Alvarez, but, for me, if I was advising him, and which I'm in that boat, I want a guarantee, because they're saturating the market so much. And we've seen that in the UK as well, to be fair, but at a much smaller price point. So I just feel that the way people are digesting content is changing, and it does still surprise me. And I know the numbers are falling fast in America on pay-per-view, but you know, we've seen in the past the heat that I've got or Sky have got from those £20 pay-per-views, which is ultimately what, $27. I can't believe that $70, $80, $90 pay-per-views in America is still a thing, but it is a thing. And but right now, you know, I would be looking, if I was a fighter, to make sure I had a guarantee across all pay-per-views, because I do think it's a dwindling market, especially at that price point. So with regards to Charlo fight, no problem. You know, honestly, Rob, this guy, you couldn't mention a fighter to him that he'd say no to. It is unbelievable. His confidence is on another level, but he does want to fight the champions. And I think with Charlo, you know, you've got Charlo and Demetrius Andrade both calling out Canelo Alvarez. For me, just fight you two. Like, it's the obvious fight to make. You've got two American world middleweight champions, tremendous fighters. Charlo against Andrade is a tremendous matchup, and that's the kind of fight that could take one of those to a Canelo Alvarez fight. So hopefully those two fight, but Canelo he'd fight anybody. But he does like taking people's belts as well. That's one thing I've learned about him.
And there's no reservations on your end about him potentially going to box on Fox or taking one of those fights on a one-off deal?
No, and that's what the key, what you said there, is a one-off deal. You know, that's what Canelo Alvarez wants. I don't think he's looking to engage. I mean, we had a relationship that was supposed to end with Billy Joe Saunders. He's, moved forward with me again, which is I'm honoured to do that. But I don't think even with, if I put a 5-fight deal in front of him now, I think he's been through that stage in his career where, he doesn't want to, he's come out of a long-term relationship, and I don't think he wants to jump back into another one. He's in a tremendous position where he can pick and choose where he goes, who he fights right now. And that's not something that many people can do in the sport. Probably just Canelo and Anthony Joshua, to be honest with you. And it works well for him. We've had a great run so far, and we continue to continue that now. And it's not a case of, sign here with another network for 3 or 5 fights. I don't think that's his strategy. All he's thinking about right now is show me my September options. And hope, I'd be surprised if Al Heyman would stop Caleb Plant from taking that fight. It's an unbelievable opportunity. And like I said, we've made that offer, that initial offer, and we'll hear back from them hopefully today and see if they want to make that fight for September, because I confirm that is still the number one choice of Canelo Alvarez.
Where does Gennady Golovkin fit into all of this? I saw rumours or reports suggesting that there's potentially a rift behind the scenes between him and DAZN with regards to a potential Gennady Golovkin versus Demetrius Andrade fight. I spoke to you in the past about kind of Gennady's next move, and you've been not really too committal on it. What's the next step for Gennady Golovkin? Where's he at the minute?
Well, the next step for him is to go and have a fight in Japan against Murata in a unification fight. I think that one of the issues around the whole Golovkin stuff was kind of his, he was almost linked to the original Canelo and Golden Boy, problems. And clearly he's now looking to take a big fight. I would like to see him fight in September, because it would be a year from the Zerameta fight to the Murata fight, and probably a year before that, or just over a year before that, since his previous fight against Derevyanchenko. So I still love the Demetrius Andrade fight. Is there a Canelo Golovkin Triple G3? Who knows? I mean, at some point in his career. But for me, I think he will want to fight before Murata, and it's just a case of that negotiation between fighter and platform about date and opponent and so forth.
Can you clarify any of those reports about a potential rift between Golovkin and DAZN? Is there anything going on behind the scenes that potentially we should know about?
No, I just think discussion. Obviously, I think he wants to fight, and DAZN would like him to fight on the platform. It's a question for them, but obviously it's just a case of agreeing date and an opponent, and if that fight happens before the Murata fight. I think Gennady's got in his head that Japan fight is something that he really wants to do, and it's a great fight for him as well. So it's just a case of if a fight can be made in September before that.
Those are kind of the international offerings, I guess, around the 160, 168 divisions. What's the latest with Billy Joe Saunders? Callum Smith recently did an interview with Boxing Social, said that he'd be returning at 175 pounds. What's the future looking like for both of those fighters?
I had a good chat with Billy Joe last week. I think he's undecided is the best word. I think, I said to him that I'd love to see him fight again because I feel like he did well in the fight. And I think more than that, I think he embraced the whole occasion. And sometimes you see a fighter get in the ring against Canelo Alvarez that, they're not there. They're not in the present in the ring and they don't really believe. What I saw that night was a guy who did believe in himself. I mean, as much as it was bloody hard work in the build-up with Billy, and everyone knows that, he was great fun in that build-up. He drove the fight, even though he wasn't trying to drive the fight. He ended up driving the fight and also driving me mad. But what I saw when I saw a fighter walk out was someone that was meant to be there. That was his stage, and he was coming into the fight. We talked a little bit about the fight and obviously what happened with his eye, and he had no choice after that injury. And I think he realizes he has to take a break, physically, and then he wants to see the options that are available to him and sit down with his dad and his team and have a look at it. I've stressed that I would love to see him fight again, but he's also made a huge amount of money. He's a two-weight world champion. He's now been on the biggest stage in the biggest fight in boxing. It's just down to hunger now, Rob. It's just down to, do I want to fight again? Is this something that I want to put myself through? And hopefully the answer is yes. And Callum Smith, yes, you're right. Just actually spoke to his team this morning. We're looking at opponents for his first fight at 175 pounds, which I think is the obvious move for him now. I think it's hard sometimes when you almost kind of outstay your welcome a little bit in a weight division because you have to, because you've got the belt, and that's your value, if you like. If you move up and you're a bit like Demetrius Andrade, I think really he's getting to the stage where 168 is calling, but he is a belt holder at 160. So, and when it's difficult to get Demetrius Andrade to fight anyway, to lose that world championship belt would be even more difficult. So I think Callum won that Ring Magazine championship. He defended it twice, and he had to, and thankfully he got the big fight. It didn't work out against Canelo, but now he moves up to 175 in his quest to become a two-weight world champion.
Latest with John Ryder, Eddie. I spoke to you down at Fight Camp. We discussed the potential for him, seemingly crazily, still think of John Ryder as kind of an average size middleweight, but potentially boxing at 175 pounds against Dimitri Bivol. Has there been any more negotiations? We saw David Morrell recently in the ring. We were expecting to see that fight potentially sometime soon. What's the latest with John Ryder?
Well, it's really frustrating, Rod, to be honest with you, because I feel as though we weren't, I say, treated fairly, but the WBA made the fight between Morrell and Ryder, and we negotiated that deal with Louis de Cubas. We had a deal in place that we agreed to, and then out of nowhere they put an exemption request in with the WBA for him to fight Cesar, who, no disrespect to Cesar, but isn't, wasn't the greatest opponent of all time. The WBA issued a resolution to say that, and originally the first bid split was 75-25 to Morrell, which I just found baffling because he'd been upgraded to a regular champion from an interim champion who actually missed the weight when he was supposed to defend his interim title, but that's another story. And John Ryder, was given 25% of that pot. Okay, so then they got the exemption request through. We appealed that, and the resolution was that John Ryder would fight David Morrell within 90 days of the Cazares fight, and the new first bid split would be 60-40, which is a better spot for John Ryder. But we've now written to Gilberto Mendoza and WBA to say, okay, like we had 90 days, we've now got 80 days. So let's get the first bid moving for that fight. And that's what has to happen next in writing and legally. John Ryder has to fight David Morrell now within 80 days of that fight. It's been frustrating for John because he was training for that fight. And the Dimitri Bivol conversations all came about because we were all frustrated. I think, Tony and Charlie and John were like, look, if Morrell's going to just keep ducking us, let's do something else. and Dimitri Bivol was a fight that they would move up to take. So some of my conversations with Dimitri Bivol now is about the Canelo Alvarez fight. It's also about the John Ryder fight. Obviously, you've got Joshua-Usyk and Bolotniks, there'll be some news on that regarding the WBA soon. So there's lots of options for Dimitri Bivol, but it has been very frustrating for John Ryder because I just want him to get his shot. And by the way, David Morrell against John Ryder is a really good fight. I mean, look, Morrell crushed Cazares, didn't he, with a great knockout. But John Ryder's a different kind of fighter to Cazares, and I think that's a really good fight. And now that split is in place, I think we've got a great chance of bringing that to the UK as well. So we'll be aggressive in that bid and those negotiations. And John's like, you know, everyone knows how close we are to Tony Sims, and that extends kind of through John Ryder. He's one of the guys that we started working with originally. John Ryder and Charlie Sims and Tony Sims are very, very close. They put a lot of pressure on me to deliver for John Ryder, and I want to deliver for John Ryder because he's such a nice bloke. He's a really good fighter. He's paid his dues, and he deserves his shot. So, you know, I'll be pushing the WBA to make sure that those Morrell negotiations speed up. And if Canelo doesn't fight Dimitri Bivol next, I think John Ryder's well in there with a shot to do so.
Sticking with all things international, Eddie, one fight that's really piqued a lot of people's interest that's been mooted to be ending up on DAZN. Mikey Garcia versus Regis-Prograis. What a fight that would be. Talk to me about that. Yeah, I mean,
Mikey Garcia obviously boxed with us against Jesse Vargas back in 2020 now. In February, it was actually our last US show before the pandemic. And he's been looking for a lot of big fights. Of course, the Manny Pacquiao fight. I think the great thing about Mikey is he'll box at 147, you know, maybe all the way down to not 135 anymore, but, you know, under 140 if he has to. So I love the fight with Regis-Prograis. It's kind of one of those fights where the belts at 140 are held up by Josh Taylor, but that is probably the best fight at 140 that can get made. I mean, obviously, you'd think that a best fight in that division would include Josh, and maybe that's the case. But certainly outside of the championships or outside of any Josh Taylor fight, Regis-Prograis against Mikey Garcia is a tremendous fight. We're talking to their two teams. We're talking to DAZN. I think, Rob, kind of everything runs around Canelo Alvarez. Do you know what I mean? When you're looking at planning schedules and you're looking at planning budgets. So once that gets made, the Canelo Alvarez fight and who he fights and where he fights will kind of shape the rest of the schedule for the rest of the year. But that is definitely a fight I would love to bring to DAZN.
It's very much a fight that I would love to see on DAZN. While we're kind of talking all things 140, of course, we did see a new champion, if you can call it that, at 140 pounds recently. Gervonta Davis moved up to beat Mario Barrios. Just your thoughts on his performance?
I think Gervonta's great. You know, I know that myself and Leonard Ellaby sometimes have some back and forwards, but I think Gervonta Davis is a star. You know, I think he's obviously putting bums on seats. I don't know the pay-per-view numbers. It's a tough market right now in America for pay-per-view, but he is a pay-per-view fighter because he's always in great fights. The argument is he's never really boxed anyone of serious note, and that might be a little bit unfair to Barrios because I think Barrios is a good fighter. But you've got a guy that, you know, has won 3 regular championships with the WBA, and I just, you know, I'm not a massive fan of the comments of, you know, we're just going to fight in-house. We're not going to fight anybody else, because then if you do that, you're ruining the opportunities to make the best fights in boxing. Like Matchroom, PBC, Floyd, whoever it is, we should want to make the best fights. We all know that our jobs as promoters are to deliver the best fights for our platform and our network and our broadcaster. But at the same time, to stand up there at a press conference and basically tell the fans we're not going to make any of the fights that you want to see because they're not signed with us, it's not a great look. Because if you look at the fights that are out there for Gervonta Davis, I mean, firstly, the Ryan Garcia fight is a huge fight. The Devin Haney fight is a huge fight. The Teofimo Lopez fight is a huge fight. There's 3 names there that are working with other platforms. But at the same time, we should all be trying to work together. This is what I say about, you know, Canelo against Plant. If you want to do that fight on fight, it's no problem. You know, but sometimes you won't be able to sign a fighter in a multi-fight deal, but you might be able to convince a fighter or the existing platform to take that specific fight on this one occasion. But I think a lot of people want to tie that in. You know, they don't want to say, okay, I back my man Tank to beat Ryan Garcia. I think if Ryan Garcia was to have that fight, he would have to sign and get tied up with that promotional outfit and network. And that's what makes things difficult. So big admirer of Gervonta Davis. I thought it was a great fight. Props to Barros as well. But I guess if you're breaking down Tank's resume, you know, there's a lot to do. But he can do it because he's a tremendous fighter.
You mentioned Devin Haney there. The last time I spoke to you at Fight Camp, we discussed the fact that he's no longer under contract with Matchroom. What's the latest with him?
Same really with Canelo. You know, Devin's made it clear where he wants to be, which is with us. We're planning his next fight now. There's a mandatory coming up mandatory fight between Fortuna and Jojo Diaz, which is this weekend, I think.
Friday, yeah.
And if we can't get a Ryan Garcia, a Teofimo Lopez, then we'll fight the winner of that fight, probably in October, November. So Devin's another one like Canelo, where, you know, I've just said to him, look, let's just almost keep ourselves floating, because if Gervonta Davis wants to fight Devin Haney, I can make that fight like that now. You know, if Teofimo Lopez wants to fight Devin Haney on ESPN, we can make that fight now. I don't want politics to get in the way of giving Devin Haney the fight that he needs to break out to become a megastar. So I think he's in a great spot. He's got the security of DAZN, but at the same time has the freedom right now to move into the big fights where he wants to. So, and I like that, Rob, because then there's no excuse. You know, and again, I go back to the Canelo Plant fight. There's no excuse why that fight shouldn't be made, because we can do it on Fox. We can make an offer to Plant to do it on DAZN. I'm happy with either. So sometimes you get the fights like Errol Spence against Crawford. Yeah, I understand. One's with Top Rank, signed exclusively. The other one signed exclusively with Fox and BBC. So makes it more difficult. But in these instances, it's nice to be able to say, guys, there's no politics here. Let's just sit down and make the fight.
We've been waiting for that Ryan Garcia fight for a long, long time now. Obviously, Ryan Garcia has had his kind of much publicized issues away from the ring. He's now since returned. He's back in the gym with Eddie Reynoso and co. Is that the fight? Surely that's got to be the fight that you want to make next, as not only Matchroom, but also DAZN. Yeah, because again, Ryan Garcia is a huge star. You know, I mean, he has a massive following. He had a great win against Luke Campbell last time out. And I just, look, Ryan Garcia against anyone of those names that we mentioned is a massive fight. But it just frustrated me where, you know, you talk about these network politics, but there we had a fight where not only is Ryan Garcia and Devin Haney part of the same platform, Ryan Garcia was also mandatory. Now, Ryan Garcia won a final eliminator against Luke Campbell to fight Devin Haney. And that was one thing that baffled me, because Ryan said, I don't want a Devin Haney fight. I want a bigger fight. I want this. But I was like, but that is a big fight. And after Devin's win against Linares, and he said, go out and beat Linares and then we'll see. So I think that's a fight that we have to try and push and make. I know that Ryan Garcia wants also a Tank Davis fight. That's a tremendous fight. And look, if those fights get made, you can't moan. But I just feel that it's always baffled me why Ryan Garcia won't fight Devin Haney, because that is a really big fight. And look, hopefully Ryan can get better, get back in camp, get back in the ring, because he's a tremendous asset to the sport. We've discussed on numerous instances, we've discussed the Charlos, we've discussed Gervonta Davis, etc. Of course, all boxing on Showtime. You infamously did the interview a couple of years ago where you said they'd be out of boxing in 12 months, 18 months. Have you been impressed by the schedule that they've put together recently, Showtime?
I mean, what, the non-pay-per-view schedule?
All of the schedule.
Yeah, I think Showtime's a great platform. I mean, if you look at their numbers, you know, their numbers are very similar to DAZN's numbers. In fact, DAZN's audience numbers are beating Showtime on many occasions. I think I haven't seen the Colbert numbers from the weekend, but you know, you can bet your life it starts with a 2 or a 300,000. I think Showtime's a great platform. I mean, still, I see Stephen Espinoza retweet stuff and then take it down that he's retweeted about me. It's all very bizarre. But Showtime's a great platform. Espinosa's a great operator. Like, he has a desire to win. I think he's a competitive guy. And it's changed a lot though, Rob. You know, you remember when all of the PBC fights were on Showtime. Now a lot of those fights are on Fox. Haven't thought too much about their schedule, but you know, have put some good fights. We've got a great fight coming up with Charlo against Castano. That's a great fight on Showtime. So more the merrier. I did feel that the marketplace was getting to a position. I did expect Showtime to leave boxing, because I feel like the price point for boxing, I mean, although we're in a better place now, did get to bizarre levels. And that's why you saw HBO leave boxing. And I mean, Showtime are certainly not invested in boxing, in my opinion, in the same way they once were. But I still think they're a very important network. And as I said, Espinosa, you know, he's got a little bit about him. He doesn't want to be defeated. He doesn't want to leave the sport of boxing, and he'll hang in there. And fair play to him. Good luck to him. I think he is also good for boxing.
Do you think I mean, hindsight's a wonderful thing, particularly in boxing, but do you think that if you had your time again of going over to America, you maybe be a little bit more diplomatic with people like Steve?
No, I'm not a diplomatic guy. And when you have to go into a marketplace and make noise, now you have to remember, Rob, this wasn't with our UK deal with the Zone. You didn't hear me, and you won't hear me stand up and say, this is the biggest deal in boxing history, and we're going to take over boxing, and because we don't need to do that. In America, we entered a market where both Matchroom obviously were in existence, but our profile in America was quite low, and the Zone were a completely new brand, new platform. So we had to make noise, we had to spend money, and that was the route that we took. Would I have done anything different? It's just me, mate. It's just my style. I'm going to do what feels right at the time. And you can always look back in hindsight and say, yeah, maybe you should have done that. Should we have gone in a little bit more quietly and not made any noise? Then everyone's going to be saying, well, you didn't exactly make any noise when you came into America, so you can't really win. I'm a promoter. I've got a huge mouth. I'm very aggressive. I like to win. I like to beat everybody. And it's just taking a little bit longer than I expected. But what you can't deny now is Matchroom and DAZN are absolute major players in the US boxing market. I mean, we are the biggest promoter. We're actually the only global promoter in the world. And DAZN's schedule is unrivaled in terms of quality and in terms of value in America. And everybody says, well, it's a three-horse race, Matchroom, Top Rank, and PBC. That should tell you everything you need to know. You know, this little old, or big old fat geezer from England has gone over to America, signed a massive TV deal, and I'm duking it out with the big boys. Who's done that before? So that's my style. That's what I had to do. So, and no, you know, I was never expecting, I wasn't going to go into America and start kissing people's backsides and trying to be friends. They don't want me there. You think Top Rank, you think PBC, you think Stephen Espinosa want me, Leonard Ellerby, listen to what I say. No one cares about him in the US. He should go yellow. But it's just, that's fuel for the fire. I'm not going anywhere. This is a long game, and it's a long game globally. And the US is a big part of that. And we're a major force. And we're getting bigger and we're getting better. And like I said, we ain't going nowhere. So whether you like us or you don't like us, you better get used to it.
Back to your American show, and namely Dillon Whyte. We've seen various names linked with him recently, Jermaine Franklin being one of them, and your old mate, Prince Charles Martin, has
seen it, loving it.
What's the latest with Dillon Whyte's next fight?
I think it's almost certain going to be in America. August 28th is the rumoured date. Yes, Jermaine Franklin, we're having discussions with Dimitri Salita. He's 19-0, 20-0. Charles Martin actually put a message into Louis de Cubas earlier saying, look, we should look at this fight as well, because that's building some nice pace. Chris Arreola is another name that's been mentioned. You know, I think right now Dillon's in that sort of 6-month position where he's not treading water, but he's waiting to see how these belts flush out. So we've got to stay active. And I think the idea of him fighting in America is a great idea, because you know, he's boxed in the UK consistently for a long time. He's done a huge amount of pay-per-views. He's put in some great performances. He had defeat against Golovkin, came back with a great victory. I think it's time to go and make his name in America in this short little window. And I think that could be with 1 or 2 fights. And I love the Charles Martin fight, you know, whether that's in August or whether that comes in October, November. You know, we could do a Jermaine Franklin in August and then a Charles Martin or an Areola towards the end of the year. But I really feel like Dillon should have those 2 fights in America, to be honest with you. I think that'd be great for his career. That's the plan that we've got, and we all believe in that strategy. And, you know, perhaps at the end of this week, we'll be in a position to announce that.
That fight, would that be DAZN as well in the UK?
Yeah. Absolutely.
Just moving on and kind of staying with all things heavyweight, really, we're waiting to hear Anthony Joshua versus Alexander Usyk. Don't want to sound like a broken record, but you said it would be next week.
Yeah. I've done that a lot lately. I think, Rob, to be honest with you, it's more about the timing of that fight and the fact that it's planned for end of September. I mean, I did an Instagram live last week where I shouldn't really do them, and someone just said to me, Joshua-Usyk. I said, yeah, September 25, Spurs, looks good. Next thing, it's in every paper. Hearn confirms. And look, that is the date we're working towards. That is the stadium we're working towards. I think, I wouldn't say that there's no tearing rush, and that's why, but there's a lot of stuff going on behind the scenes with the venue, making sure we can have full capacity. The contract is in a great place. We're down to minor details. We were hoping actually to get that. Me and Alex Krasik were hoping to announce the fight on Friday before England-Ukraine. Thought it would have been a nice little link up. I don't even want to tell you this week because we're not running around like headless chickens saying, we're going quick, we've got to get it announced. You know, we're still some way from going on sale for that, still some way in sorting out sort of the transport, and that's a call or request coming into our good friend Sadiq Khan soon on that, so we can get full capacity. We're waiting obviously for July 19th to make sure that they do open everything up in full, and that will be a condition of doing the fight in London. So again, don't want to sound like a broken record myself, Rob, but in a great place, like that fight done, and just stand by for an official announcement.
If it's not 100% capacity, if you can't have 100% capacity, is there a potential for it not to be Usyk?
No, it'll be Usyk next. That deal is agreed with Usyk. All the major deal points are confirmed. We have, you know, a duty to both guys to maximise the revenue for that fight, and that would come through a full capacity Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. If we can't get that full capacity, we won't be going to Tottenham Hotspur, and we'll be looking for another venue. So that's really a reason for some of the timing, but it's more about the delay. If it is a delay, is more about finalising the venue rather than finalising the fight. He's fighting Usyk next, and subject to where that will be held, hopefully Tottenham Hotspur Stadium on September 25th.
If for whatever reason, just playing devil's advocate here, that this drags on past July the 24th, is there any potential for you to look at the winner of Wilder Fury 3 as a potential next option for Anthony Joshua?
I don't think so. I've seen a few sort of conspiracy theorists that are saying, oh, they're delaying the fight to see what happens July 24th. Not really. That's, was it over 3 weeks away still? So our plan is to fight Alexander Usyk, and that's what we intend to do.
Now, we touched upon his name briefly at the start or during this interview. Chrislbert this past weekend, of course, boxed on Showtime. He also had a few interesting things to say about Deontay Wilder, which caused a stir across social media.
Yeah, I haven't heard that. What did he say?
So he basically came out and, I think, call it what it is, kind of ridiculed Deontay Wilder for his excuses, said that he expected Tyson Fury to win again by stoppage in the third fight. I know that you're something of a fan or admirer from a distance of Chrislbert. Just wanted to know if you'd seen those comments.
No, I haven't. I haven't really seen a lot of Chrislbert box. I know he's very skillful. I've seen a couple of his knockouts previously, but I do like the kid, or like the young man. He's always been ringside for quite a few of our fights with Nikita and Reshat and the kids he knows, and I'm really pleased to see his success. I didn't see his comments. The whole Wilder thing's just bizarre, really. Like, just, you know, he had all those excuses to make, and then when he had the press conference, he didn't even talk about them or justify them or. So God knows, but no, didn't see him. But well done, Chrislbert, on the victory.
We haven't had an official announcement for a broadcaster yet for Wilder Fury 3. Is there anything that we should know about that? Is there potential for Sky or DAZN even to be involved in that?
Not the zone, no. I mean, I don't know. Obviously, I'm out of that house now, so I can't. If I'm a reporter looking in, I don't know. Is there a reason that, I don't know? Will any of them show it? I don't know. I presume one of them will. I know that obviously BT have matching rights, so if Sky put an offer in to BT have to match it, or are those guys negotiating a deal that maybe it's with a different broadcaster? I don't know. I'm not aware of any conversations with the zone going on to air that fight. It is very strange that no broadcaster has been announced. It's 3 weeks on Saturday. If we were doing a fight like that, we would announce the broadcasters basically on announcement, pretty much, or very close to. I can't help you on that one, mate. Let the rumour mill turn.
What's the best outcome for yourselves and Anthony Joshua in that fight? We've seen yourself and Shelley Finkel, Al Heyman, Deontay Wilder over the years kind of go back and forth. The well-publicized fallout from Tyson Fury versus Anthony Joshua this year. What's the best business move for you on July the 24th?
I think it would be easier for me to make a Tyson Fury fight, to be honest with you. Like, at least there's parts of his team that I can have cordial conversations with, and Tyson Fury himself. I know him. I've met up with him. And then on the other side, like the 2 times we tried to make the undisputed fight, one, I can't even tell you the silence. Like it wasn't even. They wouldn't even have a meeting with me to discuss it. And to be fair to Tyson Fury's side and Bob, there was a lot of work that went into that. And although I was driving that, people, if I phone Bob, he'd pick up the phone immediately. So, yeah, in answer to your question, I think a Tyson Fury victory would fill me with more confidence to make an undisputed fight with Anthony Joshua.
What's the relationship like in the minute between yourself and Bob? We saw interviews where you
absolutely fine.
You didn't hide your kind of emotions around the whole
situation. Because I never felt that really anyone was behind making that fight. Like all I ever saw and read was, he's talking rubbish. He's got a big mouth. He'll never make that fight. He'll never get a deal done. And all the time that I was negotiating that deal, they were seeing those comments, and it made it even harder for me to get that deal over the line. Then I got the deal over the line, and then it took Bob 3 or 4 weeks to say anything after the arbitration ruling come in. And then he said that we went back and got greedy and asked for more money. That was the delay. It's very simple. We put together an agreed number and deal that we should propose. All parties, everybody approved that deal. I went in and pitched it, and I got it done. There was no movement in money or people asking for more money. That was the deal that was approved by everybody. So he's just made it up out of nowhere. But on the same time, Rob, the good thing about Bob is, and I've always said it, you could go in, take his car, nick his house, I don't know, shove him over, and he would still phone you that night and make a deal for something else. And I admire him about that, and I respect him for that, because although he is just so outspoken at the moment and says some bizarre things, he'll rarely let ego get in the way if there's money to be made. So I don't have any doubts that if Fury wins and AJ wins, we can make that fight. And I would have more confidence in that scenario.
You've kind of made no secret in the past of your great relationship with Saudi Arabia. You, of course, did the Anthony Joshua and AJRuiz rematch there. How did this fall with them? I'm assuming, at least, obviously I don't have a relationship with them, I'm assuming it didn't go down particularly well after months of negotiations. Not the best.
Obviously, their name was out there as well, which was probably frustrating for them, that, we'd agreed to deal with them and we couldn't get it over the line. I think the biggest thing, Rob, if you can imagine me for 3 or 4 months, just relentlessly harassing you to do something, get you so excited for a deal, agree a deal, have dozens of calls with lawyers and put hours and hours into something, for it to fall apart over something, that you were just told that wouldn't be a problem. They were very, very frustrated, as we all were. But they also, some of them understand the boxing world. And now the plan is just, the conversations continue to move forward, probably under the radar this time, because last time we live in a world now where we're all doing 1 million interviews a week, and we're all talking too much. So I think if it does happen there, then it will be under the radar, and we'll have to all be careful what we say.
Obviously, we discussed this and the fact that a site fee would have massively helped with the reduction or the lack of gate during COVID. Now that seems to be coming to an end, is there a potential at least for Joshua Fury 1 to happen in the UK?
Always, but I think we know the numbers that were put on the table for that original deal, and I think that's something that will be explored for the fight moving forward for the winter. But I think we always know that the UK full capacity will still give you probably 50 or 60% of the value of the fight compared to in the Middle East. But I would never rule anything out. Who knows what's going to happen?
How's Anthony Joshua been amongst all of this? Obviously, we're still waiting for Alexander Usyk. That's a very tough fight. He'll be very aware of that. What's AJ's mentality like at the minute?
Good, chilled, relaxed, frustrated initially, and you saw that across his social media. But out in Marbella at the moment, sort of starting his pre-camp, training out there. He's in tremendous shape. He's trained and sparred really since the Pulev fight, preparing for Tyson Fury. Obviously, he's had to just switch that camp up now, switch sparring partners, switch strategy. And that's what's been happening over the last few weeks, and he's ready to start full camp.
What's the status with Anthony Joshua's Matchroom contract? As I understand it, at least you have one fight left?
Yep, correct. And there'll be an announcement in due course about a major announcement with Anthony moving forward. I always said that we will represent Anthony from his debut until his final fight, and I believe that will still be the case. We have a tremendous relationship. Not just in the ring, but across business and projects that we continue to work on together. So I'm sure you'll get some news on that in the next 2 weeks.
There you go. You can let an interview go about putting a deadline on something. Much the same as kind of Canelo. You mentioned Canelo and AJ as kind of the two big stars, or two of the biggest stars in world boxing. How does your relationship with Anthony Joshua change as he's become the big megastar that he has, compared to obviously when you initially signed him all of those years ago?
Just I can't tell you, AJ is one of the truest, one of the realest people I've ever met. Although his circumstances have changed, it's impossible not to change, because your life becomes very, it's invasive. You got people just harassing you, people want things, but the Anthony that I know now is the Anthony that I met, blimey, nearly 10 years ago. Honestly, like he has so much loyalty to people who have been loyal to him, who have supported him. And, I don't want to sound like a fanboy, but he's a tremendous man. He's intelligent. He's a great businessman. He has a huge heart. He's a fierce fighter. He's a winner. And listen, my life, our business wouldn't be the same if we hadn't met him. And I believe his career wouldn't have been the same if he hadn't met us. And that's why it's a tremendous partnership. And that's why we look forward to a tremendous partnership together for his career and beyond that. He's a big part of our business. He's a big part of our life. And I know it's cringe, but he's like family to us. Like me and my old man, like we're really close, really close. And the Canelo stuff is the Canelo stuff. It's an early relationship, but I see so many similar trends to Canelo that I see to AJ, not just as a competitor, but in terms of his loyalty. But I trust Canelo. I trust Anthony with everything. If he gives me his word and I give him his word, I would never, ever let him down. And that relationship is built over time. It takes time. But with Canelo Alvarez, you can see the same kind of trend. But AJ is a special part of our lives and our business. And we will work with him through his career and beyond.
And the Usyk fight in the UK, that'll be on Sky Sports in the UK. There's one fight left with Sky.
Yeah, correct, yeah.
And then after that, I'm assuming at least DAZN in the UK will DAZN as a business will go full throttle really, trying to get the UK.
I think everyone will, Rob. I think Anthony Joshua is the hottest property in UK boxing, obviously, and arguably the hottest property in UK sport. So we'll have to see what happens. Rob, I've got 2% battery here, so how long we got left? Because I can plug it in, but if you've got like a minute left or so,
we had about 5 minutes left, Ed. What do you reckon?
Hold on.
Nice shorts.
Thank you. See if I've got a charger. There we go. Sure. Right, there we go. It's all good.
Okay, lovely. Right, before we move on from the heavyweights, Eddie, just like to grab, I guess you would call it an official prediction for Wilder Fury 3. I think you've been quite resolute as to how you thought that fight would go over the last 18 months. Any final changes?
I still think that it's a difficult fight. I mean, I think that Wilder is always dangerous. I saw AJ's interview recently where he sort of said he doesn't feel like he's an elite fighter, and I agree with him in that respect. I don't feel that he is of the same level as AJ, as Tyson Fury, of these kind of guys, but he's always dangerous. You know, and I guess anything can happen in that fight. I think Tyson Fury is a huge favourite. I think if anyone's honest, Tyson Fury won the first fight by 3 or 4 rounds. He obliterated him in the second fight. So on paper, it should be a mismatch. But Deontay Wilder does carry that power that it's the equaliser, isn't it? So what he might lack in skill and footwork, he does make up in power, and it will always be interesting to fight whilst Wilder has the ability to throw with force. But as you saw in the last fight, that was taken away from him because he just got absolutely battered. And I think you just don't know where Fury's at, do you? You know, you don't know where his head's at. You don't know how good a camp he's had. He doesn't really want the fight, does he? He's not motivated for the fight, and that can be dangerous. So I'm picking Tyson Fury, probably by stoppage, but you never know.
Final one on the heavyweights. Philipovich, what's going on with him?
Well, it's probably the most frustrating thing going, because we're going down the IBF kind of like every day, trying to find someone to step in the ring with Philipovich. And the latest one was Martin Bakole, who we're trying to make a fight with now, who Billy Nelson, I think, came out and said, look, we wouldn't be ready for August, but ready for September. So we said, okay, look, that's disappointing, but let's go ahead. And now I'm being told he wants a warm-up fight. So, but you've got a chance. If someone in that top 15 has got a chance to fight Philipovich in a final eliminator for Anthony Joshua. And we've gone through, and I don't want to shame everybody, but we've gone through the whole ranking, and we are yet to find one person that will do it. So we have to have a meeting with Callum Sowland in London on Friday. We need to make a fight with Philipovich because he's waited too long now. So if there's no one in the IBF that will step up and fight, we need to get him scheduled.
Why is that, Eddie? Is it just people don't want to step in the ring with him? People going down all options?
Basically, I'm a bit of both, but generally the first one. I think people look at Hrgovic and say, I'm not sure I can beat Philipovich. So I'll swerve that. I mean, you got you look at the names like Charles Martin, AJRuiz, Luis Ortiz, Tony Yoka. It's just so many fighters, and you just think if they win, you're mandatory to AJ. But I guess that just goes to show you what a problem Philipovich is for people.
And in the IBF, it's not like they're shy in enforcing their mandatories either.
No, that's the thing. So it's not like that you're saying, oh, well, I can win the fight and I have to wait 2 years. That's not the case. But still people choose not to take it.
Okay, Ed, right, before I let you go, as much as it's always fun to sometimes discuss the things that you are getting a little bit of stick about, one of the things that you haven't got any stick about recently, or not to my knowledge, is the DAZN talent announcement. The broadcast team, headed up by the one and only Mike Costello. A few interesting names in there that certainly took a few people by surprise. Talk to us about that talent broadcast. It really did surprise a few people.
Yeah, I mean, again, you still get people moaning and if it's, it's Maya Jama, what does she know about boxing? Not a lot. Do you know what I mean? She's not there to analyse boxing or commentate on boxing. She's a presenter across sports and entertainment and music, and she's one of the biggest, most current presenters in the UK today. So to acquire Maya Jama was a huge coup. Laura Woods, the response was off the chart. Like, she is a tremendous sports broadcaster. I think one of the best presenters in sport right now, obviously across Premier League, the Sky, and many other properties as well. Mike Costello was the one I was proudest about, because I knew the response it would get from fight fans. I know how popular Mike Costello is. I know how good Mike Costello is. And I know that many broadcasters in the past have tried to work with him, and it was very difficult. It was a case of pulling him away from the BBC, but it was just a case of sitting down with Mike. And like, Mike is a very conservative guy, Rob. So for him to take this move was massive. Like, he had to take a big leap of faith. So it took him a while to understand the project and to see things within the project that we were going to do. And when he agreed to do it, I was really quite chuffed, to be honest with you, because I think Mike Costello is brilliant, absolutely brilliant. And he's a massive asset. Andy Lee, another tremendous asset, because I think when you're doing the production like Matchroom Media are, one of the criticisms you could have is, oh, well, it might be a Matchroom loving, you know, or they're just going to, but you know, with Mike Costello and Andy Lee, let's be honest, they're not like that. And they're the most sort of, you know, constant, unbiased opinions you can get in boxing. And I think that's really important. Tony Bellew, who I really believe, you know, sometimes he can be a bit on the biased side because he loves Matchroom and we love him, especially if he's got a fighter in the mix. But he's also one of the best brains in boxing, one of the biggest names in boxing, one of the biggest personalities. And I think he'll work really well. You know, you've got that mix of Maya Jama, who is, if you like, I think host is a good word. You know, then you've got Laura Woods, who is really the presenter. And then you've got Tony that will be working, you know, with Maya, across some commentary sometimes strategy. But Mike and Andy are that sort of hardcore front commentary team. Chris Lloyd, who I really believe is the future of boxing broadcast. I mean, his knowledge, his analysis, his commentary, his presenting, his questioning, brilliant. And Darren Barker, you know, those two have really built up a great friendship and a great double act during the pandemic in the bubbles. And you know, what you'll see, although Mike Costello will join us in week 3 of Fight Camp because of the Olympics, Chris Lloyd will lead that commentary moving forward. But on a regular night, you will see Chris Lloyd and Darren Barker call the early fight, and then Mike Costello and Andy Lee call in the main card as well. So a brilliant announcement. And you know, ask yourself this: if you want to criticise that talent roster, I know you're not, just compare it to any other platform in the UK, please. Like, and I'm not criticising other talent because there's some tremendous people, but look at that talent roster and compare it to any other platform. It is night and day. So I was really pleased, and you know, we want to keep momentum going with announcements, obviously for Leeds and for Liverpool and for other big nights as well. And you know, we're just gearing up for Fight Camp, and that's going to be Matchroom Media's first UK production. It's a lot of responsibility, but it's very, very exciting. And everyone, all I can tell you is that talent team and all the production team are so motivated by this project, and Fight Camp's going to be really special.
Well, we look forward to it. Less than 4 weeks away now, Fight Camp. Has that extra element now, the fact that you don't have Sky behind you? I mentioned the word that I kept reiterating to you when I came down was it seemed very new, seemed very fresh, and a real opportunity for you to get your teeth stuck into. It's
really fresh, and there's a load of announcements coming up about partnerships with other platforms, and so it's going to give so much more added exposure for our fighters. Fresh is the best word, Rob, because there's no restrictions in it. Like, these people are very smart, you know, and if there's opportunities with other outlets and other platforms to add exposure for our fighters and the fight and for the sport, they're all for it. But you're going to see, like, when you look at these cards and from top to bottom, this is how it's going to be now moving forward. And I think you're going to love it. I really do. I'm excited for the fans because I think you're going to love the product. I think you're going to love the fight nights. I think you're going to love the production. You're going to love the talent team. And you should be getting behind this, because if you love boxing and if you want value for money, and you've always had a go at me about, oh, there's pay-per-views and all this expensive, here's no excuses. Do yourself a favour, download DAZN, subscribe now, and be part of this movement. You're going to love this product. You're going to love this platform. And we're going to give you great nights. And can't wait for fight camp to kick off. Look forward to seeing you there, Robert.
One of the only things that did come out was the price point around the tickets. Lofty at £750. Just talk us through the reasoning behind that.
It's an opportunity of a lifetime to go and watch boxing in HQ at fight camp. You know, we've got 200 tickets to sell. So, and to be honest with you, it's in our garden. Like, being completely honest, we are not going to open this up to just like thousands of fans. Like, it's not that type of event. This is a one-off, almost like a corporate event. Like, you will not believe, you'll be there. And I'll tell you this, although you'll be there for nothing, right? When you see the setup at fight camp, when you see the entertainment, the hospitality, the food, the drink, the experience, this is a one-off experience for a fight fan, once in a lifetime. And I know it's not AJ against Fury, but you will be there. You're amongst everything. It's not, you came to fight camp last time?
I came to look around. I didn't come to watch any fight.
Okay. But like, you're in and around everyone. So it's not like, oh, we won't get, like, you'll be sitting next to me. You'll be sitting next to Maya Jama. You'll be sitting next to Bellew. That's it. So we had 200 tickets to sell. So yes, it's a high end, it's a corporate event. It's not an event for, thousands of fans to come and, open up the HQ to. It is a corporate event, and it's a once in a lifetime event. And I promise anyone that goes, I mean, we've seen, I could have made it $5,000 a ticket, Rob, to be honest with you. They're still going to sell, because it is like, it's a unique hospitality event. And we've almost sold out of week one. I think we've got limited tickets available for the 2 weeks. So, and it's and half expensive to do that show, trust me. And you add up those purses as well. But anyway, that's my problem. But, the price is what it is. It's not an event that's going to be open to everybody in the country. It's an exclusive hospitality experience and a once in a lifetime experience for a fight fan.
And go back to arenas and hopefully full capacity, still free tickets
Absolutely.
for us employees?
100%. I mean, I saw this. You said you were going to give 200 tickets to NH. I said, I've got 200 tickets to sell. The idea is always, when we return to full capacity, we will be giving 200 tickets on every show, including AJ shows, to the NHS, and nothing changes. And actually, we are going to be giving NHS tickets away for fight camp as well, for competitions for NHS workers and key workers. That's important to note as well. Obviously, not 200 when we had 200 to sell, but absolutely, I'm not going to make a statement like that and not follow it through. But there's a difference between having 200 tickets to sell and having a full capacity venue. When we return to full capacity, which I believe will be after July 19th, by the way, in these arenas, then that will come into full effect, and we will honour that completely.
Okay, final fight I'd like your opinion on, Eddie. We spoke about it briefly earlier on. Manny Pacquiao versus Errol Spence. Manny Pacquiao seeks to wind back the clock once again. What do you make of that fight?
Well, I'm more interested in the legal case with Paradigm and Aldiato. I read that the other day. That was very interesting. So we'll see what happens with that.
There's several going around, because Mikey Garcia also had a claim as well that he was due to get the Manny Pacquiao fight next as well. Yeah, so some interesting things been thrown up in the last few weeks around Manny Pacquiao.
Well, the thing is with Manny is, I remember when we were trying to make fight with Manny, one of them was with Mikey Garcia, and it's like there's about 9 different people representing him. Like, next thing you're speaking to some guy in the Philippines, then you're speaking to Aldiato, which I did on several occasions because you did sign him. Then you're speaking to Sean Gibbons, then you're speaking to, I mean, it's wild. As a fight, I think Errol Spence is a big favourite in the fight. I think Manny's a tremendous fighter. He is getting old, and Errol's, even coming off the car crashes in his prime, he's a big, strong 147-pounder. And Manny's not really a 147-pounder. I expect it to be a good fight, but I do expect Errol Spence to win, maybe even by stoppage, actually.
Okay, well, before I let you go, Eddie, just the last thing. We've seen in probably the last 3 to 6 months, lots of rumours flying around about BT Sports. Heard some rumours about DAZN potentially purchasing BT Sport or potentially adding BT Sport to DAZN. What have you heard of that?
Again, through my long relationship with Sky, everyone thought that I owned Sky. And now that, you know, we've done a huge deal with DAZN, people think that I am DAZN. I'm not. I am Matchroom, and I am a promoter and a rights holder. I can't give you any information about corporate moves and acquisitions from DAZN, so that's not one for me. I've seen it discussed, and you know, it's not something I can give you any more information on.
But you are something of a partner with, well, you are partnered with DAZN. You're kind of their go-to man with regards to boxing. I'm sure you would have heard something on the grapevine if indeed it were rumored.
No, I can't help you on that, I'm afraid, old chap.
Okay, well, we look forward to further developments. Eddie, always a pleasure. Thanks very much for speaking to Boxing Social. It's been a little while. You get to go back to #1 Andy Purrell soon. I'm sure you're missing him a great deal. Thanks very much, as always, for speaking.
No worries, mate. It was a long one, wasn't it? How long was that?
I don't know. It was a while though. But you got a vast.
I think it might have been an hour.
You've got a vast array of talent now, Edward. So it's
well, thank you.
It's always good to catch up with you. But yeah, thanks very much, and I'm sure I'll speak to you soon.
Will do, mate. And don't forget, we're in July now, which means the start of fight camp, July 31st. Don't miss it.